This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Doug Smith. It is Thursday at 1 o'clock. It is time for our 1 o'clock podcast. We do the podcast every Monday through Thursday at 1. Thank you for joining us today. Uh, let's jump right into the science. Look at the screen in front of you. Okay, what we're looking at here is the science that is being used to call you a drug addict. This is the science that is being used to call you an opioid addict. Okay, you can't just put a label on somebody. There has to be some science behind it. Okay, and so what we're looking at is the scientific evidence that's being used to call you an opioid addict. If you listen to the podcast over the couple previous 3 days or so, you will see that what we've done is we've gone all the way back to what's called the dopamine theory of addiction, otherwise known as the brain disease model of addiction. The dopamine theory of addiction, the brain disease model of addiction. And it's a simple model. It basically says that when you're exposed to something that's addictive, like a drug or an activity, gambling, whatever, you get a surge in dopamine in the reward centers of your brain, and that this surge in dopamine in the reward centers of your brain hijacks the brain, and now the brain takes over and takes over your body, and you're basically using your energy, your time, your efforts to just get more of whatever it was that caused the surge in dopamine. If it was cocaine, if it was amphetamines, if it was gambling, if it was opioids. And so if you're an opioid addict, because when you first took the opioids, you got a surge in dopamine in the brain. That's it. You're an opioid addict because when you took the opioids, you got a surge in dopamine in the brain. Okay, well, we need some scientific proof for that. And so what we have been showing is that, hey, they're looking at a study from 1988. And the reason that they're using a study from 1988 is because the later, more well-done studies did not show a surge in brain dopamine. Okay, so they're ignoring the more recent, better done studies so that they can go back and use the 1988 study. They're ignoring the study done in 2009. They're ignoring the study done in 2014. And they're using the 1988 study. Folks, just so you know, this is wrong. This is wrong. It's dishonest. This is professional dishonesty. Okay, you can't do that. Now, we saw the quote from Dr. David Nutt that said, hey, you guys are running counter to the ways of modern science. Okay, that's a serious claim. Hey, you're running counter to the ways of modern science. Okay, and so what I wanted to do today was make sure that we had at least looked at how this 1988 study was done. Okay, this is the science that science is being used to call you a drug addict. This is a science that's being used to justify taking away your children. This is a science that's being used to put you in rehab. This is a science that's being used to give you counseling. This is the science that's been used to some really bad things that have happened to our people. And so what I'm showing here is this is the 1988 study, okay? And this is a study that was done in mice, and they did the study. It's a brain study. So they held the mice really still, and drilled, took a little tiny drill and drilled a hole in the brain. And then they inserted the little glass tube through the hole in the brain and glued it in place. Okay, folks. Okay. Gee, I can't think of anything that could possibly go wrong. Okay. And then once the little glass tube was in place, they gave the rat some morphine, and they claimed they saw a surge in dopamine. Okay. Okay, but for science to be real, it's got to be replicated. Okay, so when they came back to replicate this, first off, they didn't want to drill holes in the head and glue in place glass tubes. They wanted to use something a little bit better. And so they used what's called the PET scan, positron emission tomography, PET, positron P emission E tomography, T. They use what's called a PET scan. You don't need to know necessarily what a PET scan is. Just know that you're not drilling holes in the head and gluing glass tubes in place. So it's a much, much better way of looking for a surge in dopamine. And so they did a study in 2009. Daglish and his team did it. And they did it on humans, not mice. They did it on humans. And they gave the humans opioids. And they scanned the brain for a surge in dopamine. Folks, there was no surge in dopamine. Okay, went back in 2014, basically did kind of the same study on humans. And again, there was no surge in dopamine. So two very well done studies, 2009 and 2014, showed no surge in dopamine. And we'll look at those studies in some detail tomorrow. Okay. But today, the point that I wanted to make was the study that they are using from 1988. They drilled holes in the brains, in the skulls of the mice, and glued glass tubes in place. Folks, there's so much that can go wrong with that. There's a reason they moved on to PET, PET scans, and use the PET scans instead of drilling the holes in the skulls. Okay, because it's just a much better way of doing things. But when they used the old technology back in 1988, they claimed they saw a little surge in dopamine when they gave them the morphine. But when they did the more recent studies, sorry, there was no surge in dopamine shown. So what these experts have done, what these psychiatrists have done, is they've ignored the modern studies and they've gone back and quoted the previous 1988 studies. Folks, that's dishonest. You're not allowed to do that. That's professional dishonesty. And they've gotten away with it. Okay. They got away with it because nobody thought they would actually do it. That's how bad this is. That's how they got away with it, because nobody thought they had to check to see if they were doing things honestly. You rely on your colleagues to be honest. Okay. But they weren't honest here. So we're going to hold here today. We'll pick this up again next week. My name is Dr. Doug Smith. Please put this podcast on your social media, everybody else's social media, post it everywhere you can, send it to every member of the media that you can send it to. If you got the email from me, please do the DNA test. We need to get those DNA tests done and put them in front of the congressional reps and senators. There's also a link there to send an email to the chief of staff for Senator Blackburn out of Tennessee. Please send that email. And then there's also a link there to these podcasts to make sure that you're getting them all and hearing them all. If you're not getting my email, well, you've got contact us directly. I'll have to ask Alex how people can contact us directly. Don't think we have a link on the website. Alex, that's something we might want to do so that we can get your email address. Everybody have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. My name is Dr. Doug Smith. Thank you.